Hello, my name is Matt Hartman, and this is my gifted education overview. Instead of typing out a script, I thought it would be better to just present. So let's start with what is giftedness? Gifted means students who perform or show potential for performing at remarkably high levels of accomplishment when compared to others of their age, experience, or environment, and who are identified under all of those codes and sections provided by the Ohio Department of Education. Um, Additionally, being gifted is an extremely wide spectrum. So it's not just in the classroom. It can be in sports. It can be in arts. Being gifted, it shows itself in many ways, and it's a very unique thing. Some characteristics a teacher could look for: strong moral judgment, curiosity, they're independent, self critical, self efficient, self aware, an advanced sense of humor. The list could go on and on. There are so many characteristics to look for. And some of these characteristics I mentioned here, they're positive, like having strong moral judgment and being curious and independent. Those are positive things, positive characteristics. But there are also some negatives. Being too self-critical and too hard on oneself, and that can eventually take a toll on a gifted student's mental health. For our diverse students, um, identifying these students from culturally diverse backgrounds can definitely be more difficult, and underrepresentation is an issue. I know there have been steps to create more unbiased assessments to maybe break down language barriers and other aspects that make sure every student is represented, and because that is so important, because there are a significant amount of culturally diverse students who are not getting the proper attention that they truly need. So in my district, gifted intervention that starts in third grade, and third grade is the the upper elementary school. We have a K through 1 and then a 2 through 5. So in third grade, that's when intervention begins. And we have intervention specialists, gifted intervention specialists for certain grades. So if you're in third grade, you're with a certain person, fourth grade, etc. Um, so yeah, in grades 3 through 5, we have full time self contained classes that are taught by those gifted intervention specialists. And then in grades 6 through 8, which would be middle school, that's when we begin to offer advanced courses, specifically in math and in language arts. And then high school, um, we we offer advanced courses, AP courses, and CCP courses. So there is a much bigger spectrum for students to seek the extra attention and the challenges that they need when they're gifted. And at the very bottom there, those are some of the assessments and ways that we identify and properly place our gifted students. So I'll start at the bottom there with the Every Student Succeeds Act and how has it impacted my district. So for me, I'm in a unique position. I am in a district that I grew up in my whole life, and I was also in the gifted program, like I mentioned, starting in middle elementary school, upper elementary school, and all the way through high school. And I must say, based on my own experience, that not much has changed. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because I think our gifted students are, for the most part, getting what they need. Um, but just based on my own experience as a student and a teacher, I see a lot of similarities. I guess in general, we could do better to we can always do better to make sure everyone is represented. Especially now, our district is becoming more and more culturally diverse. We have a large Nepali population. So maybe making sure we are um, taking that next step to make sure all of our new culturally diverse students are getting um, represented and the attention that they need. So here are three models of gifted education. Um, the autonomous learner model, that is, it's a multi-step process, and it essentially allows our student to be pretty much in control of how they're learning, and it's cool because it helps them to develop a good self-esteem and good decision making and problem solving skills. There's also the parallel curriculum model, and that is a four-dimension process with core curriculum, curriculum of connections, curriculum of practice, and curriculum of identity. And these four dimensions can be used to cater to the way that our gifted students might learn. So it gives more options to learn and doesn't limit our gifted students per se. And then we have the integrated curriculum model, and this is made of three components, which is overarching concepts, advanced content, and process product. Um, this sort of model incorporates more advanced thought process. So, like an example that was given um, is you take the idea of fire and you go into every aspect of education where you can examine fire. So you can examine fire from a scientific aspect, literature aspect, social studies aspect, however you may incorporate the concept of fire into each branch there. So it makes you really think in a broader spectrum. For my district, or for me personally, what would I find most advantageous for my classroom? Honestly, all of them are great options. I don't think there is a wrong answer, but I personally like the autonomous learner model. Um, I kind of tend to lean that way because I myself was more of an independent, autonomous, gifted learner myself. So I can relate to that the most and understand the importance of getting to be in control and how significant it can change the way a student learns. And so that's the one I would probably lean towards. But like I said, the other two are great choices, and there are other choices that I have not listed. So how can we be role models not only to our gifted students, but their families, their parents, and our coworkers? So I think first we need to take the time to understand that these students have unique interests, and we should get to know these interests and maybe create a bond over them, and then that bond develops a respect, and that respect leads to them looking up to you and being a good role model, someone they can talk to and trust. And then we need to ultimately just allow those gifted students to be themselves. If we are trying to force them to be someone that they are not going to trust us or look up to us. So allowing them to be themselves is important in a sense, because if you don't do that, you are kind of setting yourself up to not be a role model in a sense. So I'm playing like the negative side there. We also need to understand that these students have different goals than myself. They have different goals than their peers, and that is fine. That kind of goes back to the last part. We need to allow them to pursue their own things, be themselves, and embrace that and help them achieve those goals. And then we also need to provide help teaching and guiding parents and coworkers in need of understanding more about giftedness and resources and mentorship, because not everyone fully understands the concept of giftedness. I myself have learned a lot this semester, so I would have needed that help from a coworker. So now I'm in a position to help those coworkers and families. So how can our gifted students locate and utilize mentors? There are definitely numerous ways. But some that I found useful. There is a website called the Davidson Institute, and there are plenty of tips, uh, and they help find appropriate mentors for their students. The Hoagie's Gifted Education page was also something I stumbled upon, and on that website, it's neat because there are a ton of links that will guide you into the area of giftedness, and they will guide you to mentors in that specific area. So I thought that was a great resource. And then utilizing the suggestions and networks of gifted intervention specialists at our schools or other schools, because chances are that through their years of their job, they have developed those networks, and they may know mentors and resources. So I'm just talking to them, asking them where they should go and what they should do. Is a great resource. Definitely needs to be taken advantage of. So 5 professional organizations to help educate about gifted students and gifted education. These are just all highly reputable sources here, and they all lay out definitions and characteristics, etc. So we have the ODE, Ohio Department of Education, Davidson Institute, NAGC, the National Association for Gifted Children, AAGC, American Association for Gifted Children, and the OAGC, the Ohio Association for Gifted Children. Any one of those could point anyone who is ignorant on the subject and point them in the direction of understanding what it means to be gifted and what a gifted student may act like and how they can help these gifted students. 3 other ways to learn about gifted education. So I went on a much broader spectrum here. So I think if I was talking on my end, how could I learn more about gifted education? I could simply communicate with more experienced teachers and gifted intervention specialists within and outside of my district. They have a lot of experience, and they could speak on that and guide me in that sense. Another resource is YouTube. I myself have gone to YouTube, typed in gifted education, and there are numerous reputable videos on there that explain gifted education and all aspects of gifted education. It's a pretty readily available resource for anyone, and you can pretty much find any specific thing you want on YouTube. So it's a great resource. And then lastly, anyone could volunteer or work. Someone somewhere that may expose them to gifted students, and that doesn't necessarily mean gifted in the classroom. So it could be students who are gifted in sports or arts. Just going somewhere and seeing it in person and getting that experience is the best way to learn, in my opinion. Learning through experience is awesome. So just putting yourself out there and exposing yourself. Other resources here, so I'm not going to go into each link. There's so many, but I have resources there for effective education, bibliotherapy, arts incorporation, cinematherapy, service learning, problem-based learning, self-understanding, and coping strategies. So I found great articles or resources there that relate to each of those respectively. And lastly, my exit ticket. There was a lot I could ask, but one thing I like to really focus on is the idea that being gifted is so much bigger than simply being gifted in the classroom. So I want anyone who would see this to think of 5 different ways or more of how giftedness may show itself, and resources that if you are in a position to help those gifted students, find resources for each of those 5 areas. So just want to thank you again. Here is my reference page, all the references. So yeah, thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was clear. I will also be posting the the link to the Prezi, so can go through that on your own time as well. So thanks again.